Hey everybody, welcome back to another Blind Tuesdays. Hope you guys been enjoying the content on the channel as of late. As you can tell, we're still doing the car thing. We're all finally getting out of the sickness, so hopefully by tomorrow, we'll start to get back to some normalcy. Um, but yeah, we just all caught the flu, so it's been a lot of being careful around each other for the past like 2 weeks because all of us collectively had gotten the flu, but at different times. So, um, but hopefully we'll be finally out of it by Monday and we'll be back to normal. So, um, but this being Blind Tuesdays, we are going to be doing a martial arts film um, now. Obviously, um, there are a few selections. We could go with like a Jackie Chan film, which again was the original idea, or like one of the Karate Kid movies, maybe, um, which I think right that falls into martial arts, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Um, but I actually decided to do something kind of in some ways as a spiritual follow up to the last Blind Tuesdays, which we did Fantastic Mr. Fox, which was, of course, directed by Wes Anderson. And we did a bit of a broad perspective on the director and how that informed my opinion on Fantastic Mr. Fox. So I figured to do the because I brought up Quentin Tarantino in the last review and kind of compared Wes Anderson and Tarantino and how they both are, kind of one and the same um, in terms of overall executions, but there are obviously distinctions between the two in their issues and stuff like that. So I figured and it fits within the category. I figured to, as a follow up from Fantastic Mr. Fox, I figured to talk about Kill Bill, which of course was written and directed by Quentin Tarantino. And we will be reviewing the film as a whole. So we will be reviewing both part one and part two. So it'll be again a broad type review. So I'm just going to generally talk about Kill Bill, not specifically part one or part two, because it was originally conceived to be one film at the beginning, but then it became two films. And Tarantino himself will say that it's one film in his mind, and that's why he's definitely not making his 11th film in the Movie Critic. He's just not, you know, wishing to look at it that way. Um, but we're gonna view it in this review how Tarantino views it, which is one movie. So even though it's actually two movies. So, but um, but starring Uma Thurman as the bride. I don't recall her getting a name. I believe that they keep it ambiguous as to what her name was, and um, tells from multiple perspectives, as Tarantino usually likes to do, um, of a horrific event that happens at Uma Thurman's wedding. She is tortured and, like brutality, and everyone around her is also killed. And she's presumed dead, but she is still kicking, and well, she is going to uh, kick some more, I guess. I don't know. That's just trying to find a funny way to use that. But she's on a quest for revenge for those who wronged her on her wedding day. As her being a former assassin, she's also has certain relations from her past that did come to haunt her or did come to that wedding day. And she now has a list of people that she wants to kill, and one of those dudes is named Bill, and that's the gist of the film is her just going on this revenge quest of killing people one by one, and along the way we get information to understand more of her quest, why she's doing the things that she is doing, and meeting certain people within the underground world that may or may not know her and also help her in growing her skill sets, specifically in Volume 2, where she gets to meet a certain master who is may or may not be pretty racist and just um oddly enough probably the most notable part of the whole Kill Bill series. That's the one component that I remember the most, but but it is a revenge tale, um and it is embedded with as Tarantino always does with his films. I mean, he's he's very much a cinephile, so he he loves to embed a lot of film type language. So within this being a martial arts and action flick and being taken um, in a certain lens, there is a an emphasis on certain features. So there's like I remember at one point there being like animated sequences that are like anime esque, because the movie is very much inspired by the likes of anime. I mean, just generally speaking, the whole movie could have just been an animated feature. They could technically remake this into an anime feature if they want to, and it would still make total sense within the context of how Kill Bill is constructed. Um, there's obviously homages to samurai flicks and just the like B movie type, mentalities with like certain action flicks, like B movie action flicks, with certain sounds and certain uh, just ways that action is played. Um, some of the absurdity elements. So there's a lot of that embedded in this movie, and just generally speaking, with all of Tarantino's movies, there's always that a an emphasis on certain genres when it comes to the the central genre that he is playing with in whatever film that may be. So if it's a western, he's going to highlight a lot of things about westerns. Uh, if it's going to be a period piece, he's going to highlight more about that period. So he really likes to expand, a lot about, what it is he is wishing to do, genre based. Um, and same goes narratively speaking. He loves to stretch out his narratives to where he gets multiple perspectives. And, this is a classic thing in Tarantino movies. It's done pretty much in all his movies with like Jackie Brown, Pulp Fiction, most famously, um, Hateful Eight, uh, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, also, most recently. He's done it so many times, and it's just the nature of his stories is that they're ensemble pieces. So he tries to like give everybody their time and tries to give certain characters um uh certain connections, so it's um like if it sounds like it a little tiresome, just by how I'm explaining it, um you would be you at least from my point of view, you would be correct um because the problem with Tarantino for me, I mean, just to clarify, I don't mind Kill Bill. I think it's a I think the first film has more issues than the second film does. The second film I think gets more to the point and actually has more things to benefit the overall narrative and the character that drives the overall story forward. Whereas the first film kind of just wallows in explanation and exposition. It's just a little ham-fisted, a little too much for me when it comes to just supplying information. Um, Whereas the second film is more about just the literal action, just moving. Let's just keep moving forward. Um, so, um, because as I said when in talking about Wes Anderson, his style works for representation, like overall just aesthetics, but it doesn't work for overall narrative, mechanics. And I think that Tarantino shares a similar type of issue where he has a really like I said, his style is very embedded with cinema, with cinematic language, whatever the genre may be in his films. For Kill Bill's case, being martial arts and throwbacks to like B movie like action. Um, he's gonna. That's where his style comes from. Is within the representations of said genre. You know, like I said, cinephile. So whereas Wes Anderson has a more directorial style. So, um, where it's like that's a reflection of him as a as as the artist, whereas Tarantino is like playing up uh certain tropes or certain ideas within the genre. So that's the two distinctions you have to make when it comes to their styles. What the similarities are, though, is how those styles play to their narratives. And in the case of Tarantino, meandering and lingering are the words you're looking for, because Tarantino is a filmmaker of length. He loves his movies to be very long. Um, I don't think there's ever been a Tarantino film that's like just an hour and a half. They're usually like 2+ hours long. And Mark Kermode, a film critic that I very much respect. I think he's just excellent. If you haven't seen any of his reviews, like check it out. The guy is just really, really awesome. And it has some really great points that he brings up in his reviews. Um, but um, he brings up a great point about Tarantino is that someone needs to like discipline him, when it comes to how he writes his scripts, and ultimately or the length of his scripts, and also the length in the editing room. Like someone needs to like tell him like just like with like the ruler, like at school back in the old days when teachers would discipline students, how they would like take the ruler and be like, no, no, don't do this, don't do that. Like that's the example that Mark Hamad brought up, and I agree. Like I think that Tarantino is his style is not boring. I mean, I certainly find I don't think of him to be racist. There's been accusations of him being racist in terms of certain depictions, specifically when it came to film Django Unchained that got plagued with controversy because of how he was like representing certain things. I don't think of him to be racist. I think that he is just representing of the time, the period. Again, he's a guy who likes to utilize components from certain eras, certain genres when it comes to the films that he is making. He's just using those traits in giving the film more of that of said identity. Packaging it more so with that identity, not just you know like not just by aesthetics, but also by just the nature of how his movies are built. That's it's all built within, this like sphere of just of of material that is from that is of the genre that he is using at the time. So so like I don't think he's racist. I mean he's vulgar. He's definitely vulgar. He loves to cuss a lot in his movies. Um, but what I think that what he doesn't have a lot of um, is the interest, because like Kill Bill, when I watch Kill Bill, I just find myself having a hard time remembering a lot of it. And the reason why I don't remember a lot of it is because a lot of those scenes felt like exposition. It felt like a lot of explaining things and having to go, back, like to like a certain amount of time, and it's just like I don't feel like we need that. Reason why I have more memory of volume 2 is because the story started to actually move, whereas volume 1 it just felt like we were just kind of circling around information, and it's like I don't need to know that information as much. You can explain that to me in like maybe 15 or 20 minutes. I don't need a whole hour of that, you know because I guess that the better example for Tarantino is that he's more of a an author, you know, where Anderson is more of an actual painter, So that's I would say the main difference is that. But in both, the lacking the element that they both lack is that expression and that overall interest, to said things that are um, being uh, either said in the case of Tarantino or actually shown in the case of Wes Anderson. So, because Tarantino he's a great screenwriter. I mean, Pulp Fiction is just one of the best scripts I think that's ever been written. I mean, it's an incredible, incredible script. Um, so like, dude knows how to work his screenplays, but or how to write good dialogue, and Kill Bill is no exception to that. Um, but but I just wish that he gave himself more discipline and just not let himself just go, like if you felt like doing 3 or 4 hours, it's like my issues with today's Scorsese, it's like like cut it out a little bit. We don't need so much time, you know because with more time, depending on the construction of your developments and your characters and your overall story, the whole thing is going to wane eventually. And usually with Tarantino, it does fizzle out for me. Um, I just kind of tune out a lot of the time with his movies. Um, so, and Kill Bill, at least in talking about Volume One specifically, I don't recall much of it. I recall, I believe, some animated sequences which I thought were interesting, and the pussy wagon, but um and like a fight here and there, but it's vivid. But then I go to volume two, and I'm pretty sure my issue would still be that it's too long, but at least there the movie started to actually move, you know? So, um, so again, kind of a broad talking about Tarantino, but ultimately it feels one and the same when I talk about Tarantino movies. It doesn't like really change. Pulp, and kind of similar to Wes Anderson, it feels that the time of which that style really made sense and really worked was in Pulp Fiction. I think Pulp Fiction is Tarantino's best work by far, and then that's not just echoing what a lot of other people are saying. There's a reason why people love that movie so much, because it balances out its style, its dialogue, and its characters and its developments. They're all playing together on the same level. Whereas now in his movies, it's very similar to Wes Anderson. It feels like wordplay and um, just overall meandering. That sort of attitude, that sort of behavior, less so to do with Anderson, but more so Tarantino, that meandering behavior. It's just because it becomes such a dominance in his films, and I get bored. I have to be honest, I get bored a lot of the times when watching Tarantino. And um, like, he's interesting by literal like framing, like the aesthetics, and just by what actually happens in his films are fun and interesting. Um, but I would be lying if I said that I enjoy like the 3 hours that I usually am with Tarantino. It gets a little much and a little redundant, and I wish for it to be shorter. And I doubt that his new movie is going to be any shorter. It's probably going to be another 3 hours. Um, and it's just how I feel a lot with Kill Bill. Just there's a chunk there, specifically Volume Two, where I do find myself interested, mainly by the fact that the film is actually moving now. Um, but for a lot of time, it's just sitting around and talking around its story, and less to do with actually moving the story forward. You know, for a lot of times, Tarantino movies like to do this. They just like to spin around, and then sort of slowly but surely, it does eventually start to move. You know, so and when it does move, that's when I find myself interested. But when it doesn't move, which is a large amount of his time, I'm not really, really, really that involved. And it's the same I feel for Kill Bill. So I think an interesting performance by Uma Thurman. I think Uma Thurman is interesting, in Tarantino's films. She was interesting in Pulp Fiction. I think she's better in something like this with Kill Bill. Um, I enjoy the supporting cast. I believe Lucy Liu's in it. Yeah, she was in Volume One. I love that the sensei that she meets at Volume Two, this racist vulgar character, like it's it's that kind of absurdity that that makes sense because of just how Tarantino operates as a filmmaker. But it's just flat out fun, like just him, you know. Um, it's like we can't have Samuel Jackson, so let's get the next best thing, which is this guy, you know. Or at least again in the context of, you know, of what they're doing. Like there always feels like there has to be a Samuel Jackson type character in that in his movies, and I feel like the Sensei is kind of ultimately what that is. But um, and I love Samuel Jackson in these movies. He's usually the best part of all the Tarantino movies. He was the best part of like Pulp Fiction. He was the best part of Hateful Eight. Best part of Django Unchained. Like, yeah, man, he's usually on his A game when he's in his those movies. Can't blame him. I mean, that's probably where he started. You know, really got his big break. Um, but yeah, I don't hate Tarantino, but I'm not that fond of him. Uh, and I just think that with less length, I think that he might be more competent and a more interesting filmmaker. But very similar to how I feel about Wes Anderson and to an extent Martin Scorsese now, I just don't find myself that interested. I think that needs to learn how to balance out his stories with his style, and maybe then I might find myself more interested. But for now, it seems like a case of style over substance, and just overall interest seems absent a lot of the time. Sometimes it's there, but most times I just feel pretty bored. So, but but yeah, so those are my thoughts on Kill Bill. Uh, you know, it's okay. It has some good flavors here and there. I like what Tarantino tries to do within the framing of his films, but and again, the writing and the performances are fun, and well established and uh, just like dialogue wise, just it's detail oriented and that's really nice. Um, but I just wish that the overall execution of said story and just the stretching was thinner. Just I don't need 2.5 hours or 3 hours to understand the premise. A good hour and a half or 2 hours would do me just right. For Tarantino, I think it would do him better also. But yeah, so this being Blind Tuesdays, I actually can't do the wheel here. I'm actually gonna do it after I cut off the camera. But so you're not gonna see my reaction to whatever the next Blind Tuesday is gonna be, but I will reveal the Blind Tuesdays right now, right here. So that's gonna be next week's Blind Tuesdays. Not sure what it's gonna be. It could be Decade Pacific or whatever, but whatever this is, that's gonna be for next week. So that's gonna be it for my thoughts on Kill Bill and generally just my thoughts on Quentin Tarantino. Like I said, it's just his films just kind of move in the same beats and the same patterns, and my like you can kind of watch them in a vacuum. Like just all of them just kind of play the same, and that's why I'm more or less speaking about the filmmaker and less so to do with the film, because my thoughts are kind of one and the same. So, but you guys know your thoughts on Kill Bill and generally with just Quentin Tarantino. Do you guys like him? Do you guys not like him? Are you guys interested in his 10th film, his 10th and final film? The Movie Critic. Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section below. And tell me your recommendations for next week's Blind Tuesdays, whatever the hell it's going to be. It's a mystery to me right now. Um, Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section below. And that's going to be it for me, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until then, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.